I chase ghosts. I investigate enslaved and free potters, forgotten spirits, and legacies in Texas during and after the Civil War in the United States of America. Greetings. I am Erlene M. Green, a ceramic artist, retired educator, and 2024 Center for Craft Fellow. I hold a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in design from Austin P State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, and a Master's of Fine Arts in Ceramics from Texas Woman's University in Denton, Texas. I am honored to share research with the William J. Hill Texas Artisans and Artists Archive at the Kitty King Powell Library at Bayou Bend Collection and Gardens. My first visit to the website was in 2015 while searching for H. Wilson and Company pottery images. It has been a treasured resource in my ongoing search for enslaved and free potters of Texas. Through the Texas Artisan and Artist Archive, I located a checklist of Texas potters from around 1840 to 1940, compiled by Bob Helberg. This list provided the names of formerly enslaved potters in the East Texas region, such as Milligan Frazier, A. Prothvo, Elick Brown, and Joseph Cogburn. Rediscovery dates for the Wilson pottery sites are unclear, but a network of antique dealers and collectors all point to the same source, Dr. Georgiana Hermann Greer, a San Antonio based pediatrician, author of American Stoneware, The Art and Craft of Utilitarian Potters, and pottery scholar. This journey began in 1991 with a conversation with my graduate advisor, John B. Miller, a professor of ceramics at Texas Woman's University in Denton, Texas. During the conversation, he shared the legend of John McCamey Wilson and his enslaved potters in Seguin, Texas. Nearly a quarter of a century later, in 2014, an internet search led me to the website of the Wilson Pottery Foundation, created by descendants of Hiram, James, and Wallace Wilson. There were three Wilson potteries of Capote, Texas, and they have all been recognized by the National Registry of Historic Places and assigned location numbers by the Texas Historical Commission. Let's take a look at the history of the Wilson Pottery Companies of Capote, Texas. The chart shows the style transition from Guadalupe to H. Wilson and to Durham, Chandler, and Wilson. The first site, 41 GU6, was John McCamey Wilson's Guadalupe Pottery. The second site, 41 GU5, was H. Wilson and Company. And the third site, 41 GU4, was Durham, Chandler, and Wilson. There is fascinating folklore about the development of these sites, many of which do not align with my knowledge as a potter. What if Marion M.J. Durham and John McCamey Wilson's families knew each other in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina? What if Miriam M.J. Durham was one of the primary investors in the Guadalupe Pottery Company with John McCamey Wilson? A partnership with Durham would support Wilson's decision to build a pottery company in Capote, Texas. As a member of the Durham potting dynasty in South Carolina, Marion M.J. Durham possessed the knowledge and the pottery production skills to ensure a sound investment. Around 1857, John McCamey Wilson Jr. opened the Guadalupe pottery business in Capote, Texas. Capote is about 12 miles east of Seguin and 48 miles east of San Antonio. Around 1869, John McCamey Wilson sold his interest in the Guadalupe Pottery Company to Miriam M.J. Durham. Durham partnered with John Chandler and the formerly enslaved Wilson Potters. Durham Chandler Wilson is called the third site. The card file of American Craft People, 1600 to 1995, implies that the formerly enslaved Wilsons may have been a part of the Durham Chandler pottery business as early as 1870. But there are debates on which site came first, Durham Chandler and Wilson or H. Wilson and Company. If the card is accurate, Hiram, James, Wallace, George, and Andrew may have worked at the Durham Chandler Wilson site before Hiram established H. Wilson and Company. The formerly enslaved potters from the Guadalupe Pottery Company established the H. Wilson and Company under the leadership of Hiram Wilson. It is believed to be the first African American owned business in the state of Texas. According to the card file of American Craft People, 1600 to 1995, the Hiram Wilson and Company pottery business was established in 1872, supporting the theory of the formerly enslaved Wilsons working at Durham, Chandler, and Wilson from 1869 to 1872. After Hiram Wilson died in 1884, the businesses merged. Let's review profiles of individual potters and owners of Texas pottery businesses. The vessels are attributed to the Guadalupe Pottery Company, courtesy of Bayou Bend Collection and Gardens. John McCamey Wilson, a Presbyterian minister, educator, and partner in the Guadalupe Pottery Company, was from Mecklenburg County, that is the Charlotte area of North Carolina. Vessels attributed to the Durham Chandler Wilson Company may have been made by the formerly enslaved potters from the Guadalupe Pottery Company, Isaac and George Suttles, and many other itinerant potters. Marion M.J. Durham was a Confederate veteran, brother-in-law of famed Edgefield potter Thomas Chandler, and member of the Durham Pottery Dynasty in Edgefield District, South Carolina. After acquiring John McCamey Wilson's interest in the Guadalupe Pottery Company, Durham Chandler Wilson moved closer to the main road on Salt Creek. John Chandler, potter for the Guadalupe Pottery Company, and Durham Chandler Wilson, is believed to be the formerly enslaved potter of the famous Edgefield potter Thomas Chandler. We headed to Edgefield, searching for any available information on John Chandler. There are noted similarities between Thomas Chandler's pot on the left and Guadalupe Pottery's pot on the right. John Chandler was one of the potters featured in my Center for Craft Fellowship. We traveled to Edgefield, South Carolina, seeking information on him. In June 2024, we met Tanya and Justin Guy. Justin is the Edgefield potter. We met them at the Edgefield County Administration and Archives office. Justin graciously allowed me to record our conversation. I was gifted with a shirt from one of the sites where John may have worked with Tom Chandler. Armed with old maps and knowledge of landmarks, we located two sites where John may have worked with Thomas Chandler. The H. Wilson vessels are the rarest of the three Wilson pottery sites because they are stamped H. Wilson and Company. Hiram, the H in the H. Wilson and Company. Records indicate he was at least 10 years older than James and the registered owner of the company. Hiram partnered with Leonard Isley, a Baptist minister from Maine who became a Confederate soldier at the age of 42. Apparently, Isley financed Hiram's real estate ventures, which involved 600 plus acres of land that was later resold to formerly enslaved families. He set aside 10 acres for the Capote Baptist Church, the school, and the cemetery. James Wilson is believed to have been one of the master potters for all three Wilson sites. Wallace Wilson was also believed to be a potter at all three Wilson sites. Based on folklore, George was a laborer at all three sites. And as with George, Andrew was also a laborer at all three sites. The vessels are attributed to Isaac and George Suttles. By stamping his pottery, I. Suttles, Lavernia, Texas, Isaac's style is easily recognized among pieces attributed to Durham, Chandler, and Wilson. George did not personalize his wear. Some pieces were commissioned by businesses whose names were written on the pots. Isaac Suttles was from Ohio. I believe he may have been instrumental in developing salt firings at the Guadalupe Pottery Company. Scholars believe that Guadalupe pottery produced both alkaline and salt glazed ware. Based on some of the pieces I examined at Bayou Bend, the salt and alkaline pieces appear to have been fired in the same kiln. Some of the salt glazed pieces appear to have drips of alkaline glaze on the surfaces. George Suttles was Isaac's younger brother. Although the date is unclear, scholars believe he may have worked for Durham, Chandler, Wilson too. Around 1876, George and Isaac started a pottery business in Lavernia, Wilson County, Texas. In 1882, George established another pottery business closer to downtown Lavernia, which he operated until 1912. One of George's potters was his granddaughter, Alma Irvine. Here are a few of my commemorative jugs celebrating the legacy of the Wilson Potters of Capote, Texas, from 1857 to 1903. I am grateful to the Center for Craft for providing the resources to focus on five historical institutions, which broaden my research to include potters in East Texas. Milligan Frazier was the formerly enslaved potter of Jefferson Nash. He started his own pottery business after emancipation. The research source for Milligan Frazier was the Jefferson Historical Museum, Jefferson, Marion County, Texas. The jar is attributed to Milligan Frazier, courtesy of Bayou Bend Collection and Gardens. The Jefferson Historical Museum has an impressive collection of memorabilia and pottery attributed to Milligan Frazier. This photograph shows his son, Sam Frazier, and one of Milligan's bean pots. Jefferson Nash owned an iron foundry and pottery company in Mim Chapel, which is about 26 miles west of Jefferson. It is believed that Milligan Frazier enslaved himself to Jefferson Nash in order to remain in Texas. In 2023, this jug, attributed to J.S. Nash, was sold through Cable Auction Company for $76,000, a record sale for a 19th century Texas stoneware. Alexander Elick Brown, a formerly enslaved potter of Taylor Brown. He started his own pottery business after emancipation. The research source for Elick Brown was the Russ Historical Commission and Depot Museum in Henderson, Russ County, Texas. The picture is attributed to Elick Brown, courtesy of Bayou Bend Collection and Gardens. The Russ Historical Commission provided information on Taylor Brown, Elick Brown's enslaver. The Depot Museum's collection was sparse, and none of the pots were labeled. It is believed that the earlier potters, including Taylor Brown, James Prothero, John Lepper, and Cyrus Cogburn, all settled in Russ County. Leonard Brown, a descendant of Elick Brown, shared pictures of Beaver Spring Cemetery. The headstone reads, Lucindy, wife of Elick Brown, born 1857, died 1913. Photographs courtesy of Leonard Brown. A. Prothero is believed to be the formerly enslaved potter of James Prothero. The research source for A. Prothero is the Inez Hadley Hughes Historical Research Center in Marshall, Harrison County, Texas. The center shared documentation on the Prothero families dating back to their crest in 1600. The 1870 census lists A. Prothero as a Harris County, Texas potter. I found a letter in their archives written by Dr. Georgiana Greer to Mrs. Hughes in 1970 inquiring about A. Prothero. I am searching Dr. Greer's archives to see if Miss Hughes responded to her question. The jug is attributed to the James Prothero Pottery Company, courtesy of Bayou Bend Collection and Gardens. Georgiana Greer's letter is courtesy of the Inez Hadley Hughes Historical Research Center. Joseph Cogburn was the formerly enslaved potter of Levi Cogburn. Levi Cogburn established the first pottery business in Athens, Texas. He was the son of Cyrus Cogburn. The research source for the Cogburns was the Henderson County Historical Commission in Athens, Henderson County, Texas. Joseph Cogburn is believed to have been the enslaved laborer of potter Levi Cogburn. When Levi died in 1866, scholars believe Joseph and Levi's widow, Margaret, continued making pottery in Athens, Texas. Recent research reveals a twist. Several sources have identified Levi's mother as African American or Native American. Levi's burial in the city cemetery in Athens implies he may have been light skinned enough to pass as white. Scholars allege that three of the five potters examined may have had white fathers. If so, did these formerly enslaved potters start their businesses after emancipation with the support of their white families. The inkwell inscribed James Everett, Athens, Texas, 1859, is the only piece attributed to Levi Carbon to date. Denton, Texas had an active pottery community. The National Registry of Historic Places document 5 dominant pottery sites. They were Crankston, Rourke Griffith, William Wilson and Donaldson, Lambert, and Sarin. John Crankston arrived in Denton in 1854 and is believed to be the first potter in Denton County. After his death, his widow Nancy ran the pottery company until her son assumed operations later. They sold the business in 1876 to T.J. Donaldson. This vessel, made by Sarin and Donaldson, are one of few jars stamped with both names. James M. Rourke is believed to be John Crankston's apprentice. He later partnered with one of the Donaldson potters. William Wilson operated a kiln near Corinth. In addition to pottery, he made marbles, tobacco pipes, etc. When developers moved into the area, the kiln and artifacts were collected and stored for future exhibitions. The only known surviving 19th century pottery kiln in Denton County is the Rourke Griffith Kiln in Crossroads, Texas. The location is available on the Historical Marker Database website. I have served as the potter at the annual Wilson Pottery Show since 2019, minus the pandemic years. Please join us in October at the Sebastopol House in Seguin, Texas. Details forthcoming through Preserving Ceramic Legacies on Facebook. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation.